Welcome to Make Your Mark podcast, where guests share their experiences, insights, and tactics to help you accelerate your business. So building, scaling, and monetizing your business is made easier. And I will be your host, Kay Suthar. Hey guys, oh my goodness, welcome to another episode of Make Your Mark podcast. I have an amazing guest for us today, and we will be talking about messaging and your story. Now, Andrea Walker, who is our fantastic guest, she loves telling stories and she has a passion about telling stories. When she launched her Walker Publicity in 2007, she had a vision of helping others share their unique tales. And we all know, guys, when it comes to business, entrepreneur, we're scaling, we're building, it's so important to make sure we're getting the right messaging out there and that we're representing our business in the right way. She was working as a freelancer writer after leaving her position as a local newspaper editor when Andrea realized that everyone has a story, and she knew that at that point she wanted to help people out there in the world, making their messaging stand out and making sure they take it out to the world in the right way. So please welcome to the stage the amazing Andrea Walker. Oh my goodness, I am super excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here today. Whenever I hear somebody talk about my bio, I'm always like, that person sounds cool. But then I remember I'm a good writer, so I'm good at making people sound cool.
Exactly, definitely. Oh my goodness. Andrea, before we get into the whole nitty-gritty of storytelling and messaging and all of that good stuff,
Yeah.
I would love for you to share with our audience a little bit about your background and what your journey looked like, because I think people tend to think that is easy and it just happens overnight, when we all know that's not the case,
Right.
right? And so tell us a little bit about your journey and what you've been doing and how you got to this point in business.
Yeah. I left college knowing that I wanted to write. I went to school for an English degree. And I had a professional writing and a creative writing track. I was doing literature and all of those fun things. And I give a talk at the college I used to go to often. And I tell those students, you may not know now what you're going to do in the future, but you know the things that you're passionate about. And I was passionate about writing. And at that time, I graduated college in 2005. And at that time, if you had an English degree, you were either an English teacher or you worked at Starbucks and you were trying to finish some book, right?
Right.
English majors just weren't getting jobs. And so I left
Yeah.
college and I started, I wasn't planning on teaching. And so I started working at a local newspaper and I absolutely loved it. And I was meeting this small town community that I had gone to school in. And I was meeting all these amazing nonprofits and small business owners and just so inspired by the work that people are able to do in their communities, right? They're making change every day. And so I started telling their stories for the local newspaper. I would go to events and I would go to fundraisers and I would go to city council meetings and all of these things that happen in a community. And it was just so intriguing to me. And so that newspaper was having some transition, and I they were getting purchased by a large company, like was happening in 2007. And I started freelance writing more for newspapers, magazines, all of these things, and really looking to take that freelance and writing into the national scene, right?
Right.
Um, and as I started meeting with more outlets, I realized that there was this gap between people who do the writing, journalists, and large advertising firms and PR firms and people that were working to try to get the names out there. And then these small businesses who had really important stories to tell, but couldn't afford at that time large PR firms and large advertising firms. In 2007 and in 2008, the country was going through such a crisis that even people who could afford those large PR firms couldn't anymore. And as we saw, I'm from Michigan, as we saw in Michigan, our large newspaper industries across the country and especially in our state were laying off journalists, and all of that was really shifting. So I discovered that by making a relationship with the business and finding a way to partner with them, I could tell their story and use my media relationships to get the story placed.
Nice.
And so I ended up, so instead of, the media budgets were cut, they couldn't afford journalists, and the business budgets were smaller, but they could still find a way to make that work. And so I was in my 20s working out of a bedroom office in an above garage apartment, and just started a website and started an LLC and started working. And one by one, people started saying, oh, Andrea can help with press releases. Oh, Andrea can help with this. Andrea can help with business cards, just little things here and there that people needed to get out there. And at that time, social media was so new. But I was able to help businesses and individuals start getting into social media as well. And I often say, what I do now didn't even exist when I went to college.
Right.
And so, being flexible is everything.
Mhm.
So, fast forward a couple of jobs, a couple of houses, a couple of dogs, a husband and a kid later is what I always say. Here I am. It's been 15 years since I started that first LLC.
Right.
I've since transitioned a bit and changed the name and honed in what I love to do. And, but it still always comes back to that core piece of helping people identify what that story is that's so unique, and helping to find the places that they can share it.
Do you know, I love that story and the fact that you have evolved as things have changed, right? You
Absolutely.
kept up with the times, right? Which is so essential when you're a business owner, right? We can't do what people were doing 20 years ago. It just doesn't
No,
work.
right.
You're gonna lose your business if that's the case.
Hmm.
And so I love the fact that you didn't set out to do this. It just kind of evolved naturally. It was a natural progression, right?
Yes,
Which
100%.
again is something that happens with a lot of entrepreneurs. The business that we tend to set out is not the business that we end up having,
Right, right.
you know? And so the other thing that I love about this is that I have been told, and I think we had a conversation about this off camera some time ago, like journalists are the best people to tell a story, right?
Yes.
Because you can find a story in anything,
Yep. We
right?
think differently. And
Yeah,
and I like to tell people, if I'm meeting with a new client, I'll say part of my job is just that I'm really nosy. I want to know why you think the way you do. I want to know how you get there. I want to know what got you there. And so that mindset that I think there's a story everywhere has shifted into being really the foundation for how I do all of my work and how I work with clients, because I'm always going to guess that there's something more. Now I'm always guessing there's something more that's in a positive way, right?
right,
This isn't
yeah,
hard hitting investigative journalism. This is, I want to get to the core of what makes something tick and what makes something unique, because that is always what's different than what someone else does.
right.
That's what makes people so unique. And that's what makes me unique, is that I'm always looking for that other thing. Like, what else do you do? And who does this? And how did you think of that? And so I'm always asking a few more questions.
Nice. It's like you just keep digging and digging and digging and really find out where it led people to where they are
Yes.
now, right? What was the root of that story? That's really
Yes.
cool. Now, Andrew, why is it important that people, business owners, entrepreneurs get their story right? Because I mean, when you start in a business, I don't think that is in the forefront of people's mind. It's more of, let me just show people what I can do, how I can serve them, my services, my products. So, why is messaging your story the right way important for a business owner?
Yeah. I really feel like, especially now, right? So many people are trying to reemerge and reinvent themselves, and so many entrepreneurs, right?
Mhm.
We've come from this time frame of like the side hustle and
Yes.
people doing small businesses or launching out to do something on their own. And what they know is that they have this thing that they're passionate about. What they know is that they're good at something. and they think they could make some money doing it, right? That's usually the start, right? Somebody's passionate, someone has a hobby and they think they want to monetize it. I work with all types of clients, and I do a lot of um, personal branding as well, because I really believe that at the heart of everything is a person. I'm not a believer that, that business, yes, some things are business and not personal, but it's still personal to someone.
Okay.
And so when I work with people, what I want to know is the why and the who, because that's always what's different. So taking the time to cultivate that story
Hmm.
is really the thing that sets people apart. If you don't take the time to know your brand and to know why and how it's different and unique, you're never going to be able to stay consistent in sharing that message. There are only so many times that someone has the opportunity to say, I'm new or I'm the best.
Right.
Um, there could be 100 dentists and they all are the best at something.
Hmm.
But unless they feel really confident in the thing they're the best at and how to share that, they will miss out on so much marketing, and they'll miss out on who their ideal client is, right? So some of the work that I do with people is finding out exactly who you are and what your story is, because that's going to determine who you want to work with and who best aligns with you, right?
Hmm.
So it's so important. I'd say it's as important as when people design their logo, right? They should have their messaging intact. It also is really going to help if you have a team of people working with you and you don't really fully understand your own story, they won't understand your story. They're not able to really embrace that. When people talk about corporate culture and things like that, it's hard to have a corporate culture if there isn't an understanding of what that culture is and who the faces are, who the players are, what it means to do this work. So I really feel like it's so important for people to really deep dive into what is the core of what we do.
Absolutely. And there was something that you said there that I want to just kind of take a couple of steps back. You said, first of all, that it's important to have your story said, right? And really get in the core as to where this came about, what your passion is, and all of that.
Mhm.
But also making sure that when you do express your story and your message, that you're using certain words that actually reaches your ideal client, right?
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
not just about you as the business owner, oh, this is why I'm doing it, this is my story, but it's
Right.
making sure that your ideal client is interpreting the message the right way that and is listened to the right way as you need them to hear it,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So it's getting the words right and accurate, which is where you come in and say, no, let's not say it this way, let's say it that way.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. And a lot of times when I'll do a workshop with people, we'll sit down and I want to talk to everyone on the team. And I want to find out what their, people hear this in marketing, the perceived value of something or the perception. So words have the same thing, right?
Mm.
So a brand may be explaining something a certain way, but no one actually understands it that way. A company may know that they sell a product, but everyone really knows their brand from something else. So
Right.
I want to, we really take the time to make those deep connections with the whole team, because I
Mhm.
want to find out. We workshop the whole team and find out, what do you think you do?
Huh?
Because sometimes what a CEO thinks they do is not the same as what the person on the front line thinks they do. And it's not the
Interesting.
same as what the customer's main questions are, right?
Yeah.
So we wanna go along that whole line of service product and what that brand looks like, because that's how I'm really gonna find out. And then we know, right? What is the point of contact? What is that pain point that gets
Mhm.
people calling you? It might not be what you thought your branding was. It might be like, so, I ask when people call and ask questions, what are the main questions they ask? But I need to ask that of your customer service folks. I need to ask that of the person who answers the phone, because often they know something that the people who are making plans don't always know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And again, you've pointed out something really important there that A lot of us, we get stuck into our own minds, our own heads, our own
Totally.
perceptions,
Yeah.
right? And therefore, we need you, Andrea, to help come out of
I
that.
think so.
Right, yeah, and be like, well, that's not what your clients are seeing it as. That's
Right.
not their perspective.
Right.
And we need to make sure that our marketing definitely hits our ideal client. And so instead of getting stuck in that jar, right,
Hmm.
and not being able to look out,
Yeah.
let's speak with you, right? And just tell you everything about the business, and then you
Right.
can there work on it with your team and give us a different perspective and let
Exactly.
us know what people are actually hearing, because
Yes,
we don't
exactly.
hear that,
Right.
right? So that is super, super cool. Now, what are some of the mistakes that you have seen with your own clients that people tend to make?
I think you probably hit on it on the biggest mistake is we get too close to it,
Mm,
and we don't think, it took me several years of business before I hired a bookkeeper.
ah,
And I use this example because it's exactly what every small business goes through, right? I'm good at what I'm good at.
yes.
I'm not good at a lot of other things.
Hmm.
And so it wasn't until, I started my business in first business in 2007, and I had some transitions from 2007 until 2015 when we relaunched and had some branding changes.
Right.
And it wasn't until 2017 or 2018 that I hired a bookkeeper and outsourced that. And
Mm,
I will say the year that I did that, my business doubled,
really?
and I was ready for it
Mm,
because someone could handle the bookkeeping and the accounting looked perfect. Now, had I not done that, I would have been okay, right? But
mm,
I would have been spending more time than this person does on something that's not my strength and less time on growing my business. And so I think the biggest mistake that all of us do is thinking that we can just handle it all and not investing in the things that will actually grow the business that allow us the time that we need to do the actual business.
absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
that is the biggest mistake for small to large businesses, right? It's
Yeah.
the micromanagement, the staying in the jar. We don't see outside of right now and today. And so we miss sometimes really great opportunities
Mm,
because we think we don't have time, or we think we don't have the budget. And
yeah.
so, I encourage everyone just to take a step back and really look at what are those things that you need to spend your time on as a business owner,
Mm,
and then how do you best get to those things, and what things can someone else do.
right.
As a small business owner, I think that is, or just an entrepreneur in general, it's the hardest thing for us to do because we are the closest to this baby that we've nurtured. I have one son now, but I will always say that this business was my first baby. This thing, I've seen it grow and I've seen it develop, and it's very hard to leave that baby with a sitter. And it's very hard to send that baby to school. But when I know that they can give a better education than I can, when I know that they can teach some skills that I don't have, I have to trust the experts at that, right?
Yeah.
And it's so this, that's it. To me, it's the perfect example for business. And the mistake that we make is not trusting other people to help us out, because that's really where growth happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. And no successful business have been successful because they've done it all themselves.
100%.
Right. And that brings us to the challenge or make your mark challenge and the pop quiz that we are now going to do. It's kind of fits well because we are going to be talking about some of these big companies. And
Okay.
so for the listeners that are not sure what the make your mark challenge is, Andrea, I'm actually going to quiz you,
Okay.
and the is going to get 30 seconds. It is going to be timed,
Back
right?
in school here.
It's going to be timed. And all we're looking for is you to name as many companies, brands, the ones that have made it that we've come to love, that we know that we use on a daily basis in our businesses or at home. And what I'm doing is after what this season, after 3 months, the guest that has named the most brands in 30 seconds is going to be getting a surprise gift from me.
So fun.
Right? And no Googling, right?
No,
So
we're the only screen up right now.
perfect, because we cannot have anyone. And I was saying cheating, but it's not cheating, just being smart, right? But
Well, and if the guest who does branding and news for a living cannot name the most, I'm going to be really
oh
disappointed
my
in myself.
goodness, oh my, that's a bigger challenge. Oh my
It's a
goodness.
big challenge for me.
Yes, all right. We got to make this work, right? We got to make this happen. Let me just get my timer up, and I'll let you know when we're starting, and I will be marking this down for sure. All right, after 3, Andrea. 1,
Okay.
2, 3.
LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, Coke, Pepsi, 7-Up, Microsoft, Apple, Hoover, Outlook, Zoom, Mitsubishi, GM, Ford, Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru.
All right, stop.
This is harder than that is harder than I thought.
Do you know what? Every single guest, right, that comes on says that. I don't know what it is. The minute you get
It's the
time,
timer. It's that
yes,
timer.
yes,
That timer gets you.
it does.
I stayed within some segments, so hopefully the
I noticed that you did.
genres help.
Yes, that is definitely a smart move to kind of stay in certain segments. But you've done well. Let me just get these counted.
All right, not too bad.
20.
All right, it's not
20
too
in
bad.
30 seconds. That's actually really good. Oh my goodness, that's impressive.
Almost. I mean, I was hoping for one a second. I was
Yeah,
thinking if I could get one a second. So
you're
that's all right.
almost there. I wonder if there's anyone else that can actually get one a second. I've not come across anybody else.
We would have to practice just to talk that fast, I think.
But no, that was really good. That was really, really good. And so what I'm going to be doing at the end of the season, I'll email all the guests, let them know what the scores are. And the one that comes first is going to be receiving a gift from me.
Love it.
Yeah, awesome. And so let's get back to our episode. And
Okay.
so we were talking about storytelling, getting your messaging out there the right way, and being able to kind of see outside the jar. Would you be able to tell us maybe some tips around doing this? Because the number one thing that I've noticed, Andrea, personally myself, when I've spoken to people, is the flip side of not being able to see a different perspective because you're inside the bottle. And that is that there's so much content out there, so many videos, so many different coaches saying do it this way and do it that way. And so people are overwhelmed and constantly changing their story, their messaging, because everyone's saying things differently.
That's right.
And so, what are some of the tips that you can give our listeners today to actually get this right, hone it in, and not be overwhelmed with all the content out there?
Yeah. The first thing I will say always is take a breath and think about what is important for you to share. So I say the content is king and consistency is queen. So these two take turns being the most important thing. Developing content and knowing what story you want to share is really important. But when it comes to social media and visibility, consistency is the queen. It is the most important thing for you to be consistent. So the biggest tip I can tell people is take a few minutes to just decide, what could we handle? We would like to share our story. What can we handle? Can we make a plan where we do social media, we pick 1 or 2 social media outlets that we can handle, and we post there 4 times a month? That's once a week, right? Like, can we tangibly do this? Set a course of action that is appropriate for consistency. When I sit down and plan with people, sometimes I'm planning with people who are going to have me and my team manage everything for them. So we can We can make big goals because we're going to handle those goals. But sometimes I'm meeting with someone who wants to try to be able to do it themselves. And so, or they have someone on their team that we might be training.
Mm.
And so we'll start with, what can you handle right now? What can be consistent right now? It is okay to start small. What I will never tell someone is that I have the, 4 tips to secret success, or download this PDF to maximize your, to triple your followers in 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
There are some secrets to that, right?
Right.
But those are not the secrets that the regular person, business owner, can always achieve. And so what I am about is tangible results and helping people just get tangible results, right? What is your goal? You want 10 more people to see your posts? Okay, let's work on that. You want 1 sales call a month? Okay, let's work on that. The other reason that I tell people to really take a breath and think about content and consistency is because, let's just say you created the perfect TikTok tomorrow.
Right.
It went viral.
Mm-hmm.
And hundreds of thousands of people started calling you or visiting your website.
Right.
Do you have the capacity to handle an influx of new clients or customers tomorrow? A lot of times people want something that they actually don't have the capacity for.
Right.
And so you only get 1 shot to give everybody a first impression, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually will talk to people about, okay, so if this promotion works, what's on your back end and ready to handle it?
Right.
Right? So it's thinking big picture, always thinking big picture, thinking of the business as a whole, thinking of social media and media outreach as a part of that whole picture, not just one thing or the other thing.
Right.
It's so important is just to look at that. There will be new platforms coming all the time, right? People ask me, so for years people said, well, should we be on Snapchat? Everybody's on Snapchat,
Right. Yes.
right? And now, should we be on TikTok? Everybody's on TikTok.
Yeah.
That's because it's 2023, and that is what is big right now.
Right. Exactly.
There are a few key players in social media that we all know have been around for a long time and will continue to be around for a long time. I tell people, if they don't have the capacity for everything, go to the longest lasting, most sure thing social media platforms. Start being consistent in 1 or 2 places, and then grow if you can. That is the biggest and only tip I can give someone is, content is your king, consistency is your queen.
Absolutely. And do you know what? Like, you saying these things, I guess it's common for people to fall into, oh, I need to be everywhere for my business to work. I need to grow. I need to do what the Grant Cardones and the Gary V's are doing. But what people don't realize is that they've got a team. They've got a team of people that can do that for them, right? When you're first starting out, you're on your own.
Yes.
And so let's start small and get good at the small stuff, and then grow as your business grows and your team grows.
Yeah.
And so that makes complete sense. And when we do look at these people that, like Gary Vee and Grant Cardone, they all started in the same place.
They did. Yeah.
Right. And so they had to take the time and make sure they were consistent, that they were putting content out there to make them the people that they are today.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
That's so good.
But again, I think people forget about that. Right. They forget that they started somewhere as well.
Yeah.
And so that is awesome. And so, Andrea, when it comes to guest podcasting, right? Why did you decide to choose guest podcasting as one of your marketing tools, and what has it done for your business?
Yeah. I think it's exactly what I just said. I've taken my own advice, right?
Yeah.
We know podcasting works. We know that podcast is an excellent marketing avenue. It's an excellent way for people to hear your story in a fuller way. It's an excellent way to connect with new audiences.
Right.
But I'm a small business owner, and hosting a podcast and starting a podcast
Right.
is not something that I can make consistent.
Mm.
And it's not something that is in my trajectory yet, right? Maybe one day when a team wants to do that with me, right? Maybe one day when I work with you on making my podcast, right? But right now, as I wanted to start getting out there and doing podcasts, I say the same thing to my clients, right? I pitch my clients to podcasts, right? Because I have a story to share, and I want to share it in as many places as possible. So once you've created the story, the goal is just to get it as many places as possible.
Absolutely.
And that is podcasting. So by being able to be here, not only am I practicing my story, I'm getting comfortable with how I share, I'm learning from somebody else, and I'm connecting with an audience that I would have otherwise never connected with. So because I know podcasting works, so the content works, right? Content is king,
Yeah.
but the consistency is queen. I cannot make my own consistent. So I'm going to lean on someone else who's already doing it and already an expert at what they do and already has an audience.
Yeah.
And so it's been great for me. It's been amazing for my clients. I help my clients get on podcasts and blogs and and it's fun because now the podcast is visual too. People are watching them on YouTube. They're listening to them on Apple. And so it gives my clients an opportunity to share and be consistent and practice their story. Often it's a lot less intimidating than being on the news at 7. And so it's a great way to just expand, and you never know who's listening. And that's the very cool thing. I mean, you have an audience. Each podcast has its own little bucket of audiences.
Yeah.
And so that's something that you couldn't do yourself, right? You get to reach all these amazing new people that you never even thought of by doing guest podcasting. I absolutely love it.
Do you know what? And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, you don't have to have your own podcast right now, straight away. It's something that you need to work up to. And I think that is something that people make a big mistake on, again, because they see, Oprah Winfrey with her podcast and that person with their podcast. I feel like that's what they need to do. And in fact, one of the advice I always say to people is, before you even think about launching your own podcast, get on podcast as a guest.
Yes.
That's got to be the main point. The first point, I would say, in the beginning, is get booked on podcasts, get really good at connecting with people, telling your story, exactly what you just said. And then if you like it and you want to do it, and you can see that it's a lot of work, right? You can see the processes that these podcasters have to put in place to make it all work and what systems they're using. And if you then want to do it and step into it, then fair enough.
Yes.
But be guests on podcasts first before you launch your own podcast. Absolutely. Yep. Thank you for sharing that. Oh my goodness. Andrea, it was so awesome to have you on the show today and share your golden nuggets. But I also know that there's going to be people out there thinking, oh my goodness, I need to speak to Andrea, right? I need to be working with her.
I'm working with people.
And so how would they connect with you if they wanted to work with you or just learn more about what you do?
Yeah. So anyone is welcome to visit my website. There are some fun nuggets there. We just did a new blog this week on crisis communication and putting together a crisis communication plan for your team. So there's some blogs there. That's walkerpublicity.com. It's an easy way to connect with me. And I love LinkedIn connections. I'm happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn. So you can find me there, Andrea Walker Leidy. And so that's a great way to connect. I'm also sharing tidbits and information there all the time. But if anyone wants to just ask a question or schedule a workshop, we're happy to do any of those discovery conversations and do some media workshops with people. And I'm happy to have those conversations.
Oh, fantastic. And thank you for, oh my God, your generosity, right? And guys, if you haven't already reached out to Andrea, if you haven't gone and seen her stuff, her blogs, all that good stuff, go and do it right now. If you've missed out on the link, they're in the show notes below. Go scroll down, get those links and reach out to Andrea, learn more about her, go read those blogs and connect with her, right? She loves LinkedIn. Connect with Andrea on LinkedIn and find out what else she's doing and how else she can help you. Andrea, it was such a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much, Kay. This was lovely.
Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.